Hello, friends. This is your friend Kent C. Dodds, and I'm joined by my friend Joel Hooks. Say hi, Joel.
Hello.
I was expecting you to say hi, Joel, like I asked you to, but that's okay.
No, I'm really bad at Simon Says.
Yeah. So Joel, I think a lot of people listening probably know who you are, but my story with Joel, we go back to before I was at Egghead, because Joel's the one who responsible for me getting into Egghead. Um, Way back in what was that, like 2014? I just barely graduated from college. I gave a talk at a meetup that was recorded, and then John Lindquist saw the talk. On YouTube and said, "Hey, let's make an egghead course out of that." And then Joel just like basically you ripped me apart on my first attempts at making the videos. And then I actually started making good videos. So thank you for that, and got my first course on that. I think I may get a couple bucks a month for those first videos, but I mean that was a transformative experience for me. So that's how I got to know Joel. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to folks? You can be as personal or professional as you want, anywhere on that spectrum.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm a software developer is still kind of how I think of myself. But over the last 8 years working with Egghead, and you've been part of that journey for a long time. I've been
Mm,
wearing a lot of different hats outside of being a developer. That's still probably my favorite thing to do. I love writing code. I love the ability to switch into flow state that writing software is one of the few things that I've experienced in my life where you can really just sit down and get into it, and then everything else fades away, and the meeting timers will go off, and you'll miss them because you're so into what you're doing, and I absolutely love that. But
mhm,
I also really have had to become a marketer and a business person and deal with like the accounting structures, and there's over 10 people that work at Egghead full time, and that has been an interesting learning journey for me, and part of how I spend my job, as well as the aspects of doing sales and dealing with clients, and recruiting new clients, folks like you, Kent, where we have to go out and find them. And it's funny because you mentioned when you first came to Egghead, and the experience for a new instructor at Egghead was John and Joel roast you until you start making good videos based on what we
yeah.
feel inside in our hearts, not like something that's written down or a standard or a spec. So like a lot of the last half decade has been like, well, how do we improve that? Because this is awful for us, it's awful for
Mm,
you. It worked, but it would like weed a bunch of folks out. And how do we expand that and kind of
mm,
make the process of publishing screencasts and tutorials and making a few bucks from your knowledge more democratic and easier to access for more people. So that's been a lot of fun. And then recently we've got into working with partners to launch kind of standalone sites that are outside of Egghead, and that's been a lot of fun and an interesting exploration and expansion of our business model. Yeah, so I have
mm.
5 kids, and I live outside of Portland. And when I'm not coding or working on the internet, I've been playing with synthesizers and making music and trying to get off of computers. Well, they're kind of computers too. So I don't know that I'm getting off of computers necessarily, but moving my interest off of the large screen format anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Just change that interface there just a little bit.
Yeah. More knobs and buttons and wires and whatnot to
Cool, cool.
they're like giant electronic fidget spinners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. That's fun. Uh, um, yeah. So you mentioned a bunch of things that I'd love to dive a little deeper on. In particular, you started talking about how much you love coding and just the flow state that you can get into. And I think many of us can like remember some situations where we've felt that, and it's just been really awesome. Even when you like bump into problems and stuff, it's still like that. I don't drop out of flow state even when I run into a hard problem. Like when I'm in that, it is an experience unlike anything else. And um, it, uh, it it's really fun. But you mentioned also that you've been having to or forced into doing a bunch of other things outside of coding, just because of what you do for Egghead. And I'm curious if you like you obviously still get plenty of time to code. I know that you're writing code and it's open source too. Egghead is open source. But you have a lot of things pulling at your time, and I'm curious if, like, you kind of resent some of the things that you have to do and you'd rather just be coding more, or, like, what are some of the things that you have to do that you'd really rather not have to do, and the things that you've actually been surprised at how much you enjoy them?
So I call sometimes I get decision fatigue, and like by the nature of my job, I'm a person that makes decisions, and it's not something that I
Mm,
have a problem with. I'm really comfortable making decisions. I think you've experienced that, right? Like you can ask me a
mm.
question, and I'll always have an opinion. I'm
Yeah,
never
I
short of
enjoy
an
yeah.
opinion, and I'll come back. And a lot of times that actually leads to like I optimize, and I feel like this has something to do with software development is off optimizing to like find error cases, bugs, and like deficiencies in your work. And I'm like a deficiency bot, right? Like I will spot it and call it out, and that like sometimes one, it drags other people down and it drags me down. And it's been like one of the things I've had to work really hard at is I don't have to like everything. And
Mm,
that's like in life, I don't like, you do not absolutely have to like everything. It's totally fine if some stuff isn't your favorite. And that's, like telling myself that and understanding that. And then especially when you make something, when you work on, so I've never worked at a job longer than 5 years until my current job, which is almost 9 years
mm.
in. And when you work on something that long,
Wow.
like you have attachments, right? And I have so much context into the business, and people will make decisions, and I'm like, well, that's wrong because of these six different things. And it's like, well, no, it's not actually wrong. It's just different. And it's not my preference. And understanding the difference between like necessity
Mm,
and preference is something that I've really, it's been a challenge. And like my worst days is when it's like a super Monday, right? Like when you come in and there's just 10,000 decisions to make, and all I really want to do is like sit down and work on my personal problems, like what, not like therapy, but like my personal problems in the code sense. Right, like,
yeah.
and that's, it's in meetings. Like I don't really like standing meetings. I don't necessarily want to like talk about work versus doing the work a lot, and that's something that
Mm,
I kind of struggle with. But it's valuable to other people, and then because I am an encyclopedia of context for this specific like business and what we're doing, my input is important. But um like how do you balance that has been interesting for me, kind of as a manager.
mm,
I don't like to tell people what to do, and I don't like to be told what to do, and that is often an issue for me. But I don't think it's going to change.
mm.
I'm never going to wake up and be like, I just want to micromanage everybody today. That's going to be great. That's not really me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in our interactions, I noticed that quite a bit. You've described my experience with you a lot, or very well, where I like to come to you and ask for advice, or just like, what do you think about this, pretty often. And you definitely have no shortage of opinions. You will always be happy to share your opinion, but you definitely don't ever tell me what to do. You're always just like, here's my thoughts on this. I think it would be stupid if you do that, but like, you do you, whatever. And I actually really appreciate that. And that actually kind of frames the entire egghead relationship for instructors as well. And I think that that aspect of your personality comes out in egghead, where for me it's always been, you do whatever you want to do. We're always happy to be here to help you succeed in creating this content, but there's no expectation until you make an actual commitment, like where I say I'm going to make a course. At that point now we've got a commitment, but like, other than that, there's no expectation of me actually delivering a certain amount of videos every month or anything like that. It's always just been like, we're here to support you in whatever you want to do. And honestly, I don't know if I would have been successful anywhere else, because especially early on, egghead was this supplemental thing for me, that I could only do, in short bursts every now and then. Until now, I'm full time on this, but even now, actually, I can't just go full on all the time, just churning out video content for Egghead or anything. I need to have my breaks, and so being able to have that flexibility, with Egghead and just your personality has been really nice.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had people that take years, right? Like from the initial, hey, do you want to come into Slack? Do you want to make some videos? And they say yes, and it's like you and other people. The intent is yes, I really want to do that, but the reality of actual life is, especially when we're talking about doing things in the evenings and in your otherwise free time, where there's plenty of different things that you could do to spend your time. It's really difficult, and so like having that patience and just allowing people space is really important to me. Um, in general, I feel like, like if we're going to get there, let's get there over time and without pressure, and like not try to like sell people into overexerting themselves for something, that matters, but might not be the most important thing right now. We'll be here when we're ready, and we can do this thing, and we can scope it to a way that's healthy and effective, and helps, like it mutually beneficial and meeting our goals as kind of a collaborative effort versus like some sort of contractor relationship, right? Like I'm not interested in um, working with people that are okay. You're contracted. You said you're going to deliver this. You're going to deliver it in 6 months. Kind of like I've written a couple books for major publishers, and it's always pressure, and it's also fake, right? Like it's we're
Mm,
going to set arbitrary milestones, and then we're going to arbitrarily pressure you to meet those milestones. And I understand why they do it, because I've experienced this, and I've even had people be like, "Oh, you got to set dates. Like I can't do anything if you don't put a date on there." And not to go too deep into it, but I feel like K through 12 education has a lot to do with that. Just the structure, and like the 6 weeks periods, and grading, and bells, and kind of this uh, conditioning over time to kind of respond to that carrot and stick format is something that's
mm,
pervasive. And then just modern life, there's just so much going on. So people like to be able to calendar and set it and meet and achieve those things. So I will facilitate dates, but that's not my default. Like I don't
mm.
get into that unless it's requested. Then you've let the vampire in your house, and it's going to be, you're going to get a Gantt chart at that point.
Yeah, I feel like we could dive into that as another good topic of discussion. But one thing that you've been really into that I've noticed recently is personal and professional portfolios. You've done like these adventure clubs on portfolio building, and there are like courses on Egghead about this and different things. Do you want to talk about like where why do you think a professional portfolio or a strong business oriented web developer portfolio is where the value comes in, why that's useful, and really even what a strong business oriented portfolio looks like.
Yeah, that's a stack of good questions.
Yeah, sorry.
So one of the like, I think you have to like think about the definition of what a portfolio is, and when I ask, and I've asked this a few different times in a few different venues, hey, share your favorite portfolios. What you get back is very distinctly design portfolios, and they are developers. It's like, show me your best developer portfolios, and the results that come back are developers slash designer, right? They all have designer, and you end up on these really really nice and beautiful sites, or really creative or fundamentally different ways of like presenting work, or really interesting and creative projects. And that's great. I think, if you're going to have a portfolio, you should probably think about design just a little bit, whether you're using a template or whatever. But to me, what a portfolio is your broader body of public work. Like when somebody searches you, or looks at your site, what does that tell them about you? And at Egghead, for the last year, we kind of stumbled into this idea of digital gardening, and there's this kind of like I don't know. There's a little bit of a buzz about this concept that you are treating your online presence as a garden, and you go and you tend it, and you have to plant seeds, and you have to water them, and you have to like, make sure that the soil is fertile, and it's a good metaphor, and I really like it. I like planting and farming metaphors for a lot of things in my life, actually. But when it comes to like your online presence, what does it say about you when somebody enters your garden? Where do they go first? What do they look at? How can you be represented, and how do you fundamentally represent your skills as a developer, whatever they may be, and at whatever level they currently are, and reduce the risk of taking a chance on you as a hire, if that's the goal, right? Like if your goal is to get hired, how do I present myself in a way that will say, hey, this is what I know. This is how I work. This is how I understand process of development. This is how I communicate. This is how I take work and finish it and get it out the door. This is, like how I consistently show up. This is how, like this is how I do my job professionally. And one of the biggest things that's kind of tough is that's not like tutorial work. And like if you were just starting out,
Mm,
you can't like take a tutorial, follow a paint by numbers, and present that as portfolio. Tutorial is not portfolio, and that's a real challenge because like for me, when I first started learning how to program, like the hardest thing at all was how do I take this from tutorials into building something real on my own, and then what do I do with that? As you get more established, I think there's more opportunities. Like right now, you mentioned like our egghead repository is open, and I can point to that as my portfolio. I can go to joelhooks.com and I've written for a dozen years and have a lot of articles, and I present and how I think and how I solve problems, and how I use Google to augment my abilities as a developer. And I capture all that, and then some of them are good, some of them aren't as great, but it's like capturing that over time, organizing that, showing people my process, showing people that I know how to communicate, showing my skills as a developer and what I know and what I can create is my portfolio, and it kind of changes, I think, over time from I don't have a presence at all to I've been doing this for 15 years, and here's the result of my work. Though I see a lot of people that are like senior developers that hit some sort of event happens and they lose their job and they look and they don't have anything, right? Like they don't have a public body of work to share, and that's like when you're in house and you're under NDA, you can't share that internal work. So it's on you to figure out how to get that out there. And the main advantage, like the reason you would want to, is absolutely to get your foot in the door. It's not necessarily going to get you hired, though it can. This can be the kind of the side door into some organizations, but like it'll put you on the roadmap. It'll give people an idea. It'll make the risk they're taking on you less. So, like if you have that and if you can prove it without like it's like show don't tell. How do I show you what I can do versus like just telling you where the like a traditional resume just doesn't do that. So like I think about
mm.
portfolios a lot lately and what they could mean and how you can present them. I don't think it takes, like it definitely doesn't remove all the crusty edges around the tech hiring process, which is fundamentally broken in a lot of ways. But like, it's like how do you give yourself more advantage in the marketplace? How do you market yourself? How do you like how does your website present like sales copy for the skills that you possess and can bring to the table? And that's something that you have control over. You can't control a hiring manager's decision, but you can control like I'm going to wake up and I'm going to like improve my online presence and I'm going to tend my garden and make my space represent my skills to the best of my ability, and that's completely within your control, and that's what I really like about it, right? Like I can't hire you, but I can help you improve your portfolio. Like that's uh, kind of how I look at it, just what's in your control and your grasp, and what can you do as a developer to help reduce the risk of taking a chance on you and hiring you.
Oh wow, yeah, that was that was really great. I think that um, there are a couple of things that I'm kind of thinking about there. One is that you mentioned how the Egghead repo is your portfolio, and I think that's a key takeaway there is that the your portfolio isn't just like a nice fancy design on a website, which makes me feel great because I am not a designer, and this is why you folks at Egghead, you all are helping me rewrite my website because I can't take the time to become a good designer so I can make present my stuff in a way that looks nice.
Yeah.
I have other things that I want to do with my time. And I think that's an important distinction. If I wanted to, I'm sure that I could. I think anybody could become a great designer. But I don't think that there's any shame in saying, hey, this is one area that I'm weak in. And before I made the website that it is today, it was just literally a white page with text on it. And I could be as eloquent as you could imagine, but that's not going to go over well with the way that it looks. Like people are just going to kind of look over that and be like, oh, okay, I guess he doesn't care. I even had like this little note at the bottom that said, if you're unimpressed with my website, it's because I'm too busy doing other awesome things. So at some level, there does have to be something that like makes your site look interesting and presentable. And I'm curious, like, what's your take on getting people or even hiring people to help you fill in the gaps of like, I'm not trying to value proposition myself as a designer, and so I'm okay having a designer. Like, where's the line for you on how much help you get to create your portfolio?
Um, so the design on my personal, like, joelhooks.com is done by somebody else too. I didn't do it. I collaborate with amazing designers all the time, so I'm spoiled in that regard. At the same time, like, when I that space, I wanted to look like my level, right? Like, they did some illustrations
Mm.
and helped with kind of the overall look and feel. It's funny because they when I got the designs, it actually brought like a literal tear to my eye. And I don't like I'd never like had
Wow,
design for
they really nailed
myself.
it.
Yeah, like I was just like it was just it's interesting how design can move you like that. But and the same is true for Egghead, right? Like I did not do the design. I have some input, right? Like, but I did not do the design. If you aren't a designer and like hiring designers is not within your means, I think you can get them actually pretty reasonably. If you look around and talk to some designers you like, you'd probably be surprised at how much like just a basic like page design that you can riff off of would cost you. It's in the several hundreds of dollars, probably, for that sort of thing. But like if
Mm,
you're not a designer, um, and you want something to look good and you want to build a portfolio that is presentable, and I think that's a good goal. All you got to do is go out and find those examples, like build a mood board, basically take screenshots, find 5 different pages that you really like, and grab the elements that you like from each of them, and kind of merge them into like a layout that works for you. I think it's like, keep it simple. There's sites that'll show you like typography combos that you can use, to like mix typography, because that's hugely important for presentation. Get some good type, do a basic structure. um, Tailwind is amazing for like bringing in just a basic like foundational design system. You could go to Tailwind UI if you really wanted to like start mixing, and like kind of makes it easy on yourself, is to bring those elements in. I think that sort of templating, versus like going, and you can go buy a theme too, right? Like you can purchase,
mm,
like keep it simple, get a theme, or like use a theme as an inspiration, and build off of that is another way to look at it too. um I just don't,
mm.
unless you are a designer, right? Like you aren't presented a design portfolio, you're presented a developer portfolio, and what that needs to be is clean and readable and present your skills as a developer, not so much as a designer. I think like there's some sort of base minimum that you might need to do. I don't think I don't know, maybe just a straight HTML page with no CSS whatsoever would be fine, but you can probably do a little better than that, I would think,
Yeah,
generally,
as
but
long
that
as
that
it's
that's the
a
place to
little more
start.
tastefully done. Mine Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like mine was literally black text centered. It was so bad.
Yeah.
It was just like a place I could drop a link, and like here's where you can find more stuff on me. But yeah, so I think that's good, and that's enabling for people who are like, yeah, I can't make my thing look good. It doesn't have to look stellar. What really differentiates portfolios? Actually, let me put that to you as a question. What do you think really differentiates a portfolio? Like if I was looking at my portfolio and trying to assess what I need to change, or how I can stand out, what is the important parts of the portfolio I should be looking for?
So I really like to see, one, it's just an introduction, right? Like if we're and when we're talking about portfolio, I'm going to be specific about like your portfolio site. Hopefully it's like your full name.com. or something related to you. So when you're searched or you're sharing that, it's very obviously your space. For me,
Mm,
I have joelhooks.com, and that's great. And if you can get that and one have a name that's kind of searchable, that's fantastic. But put it on
mm,
your own domain and start building there. One of my favorites is Max Stoiber's, and Max has built a site that just says like introduces himself and then gets into who he is, where he's at, and kind of lists some accomplishments with links, and then has a simple sharing section that shows the open source projects that Max has worked on, and then kind of gets into the blog aspect of the site. And I love the way that's presented because it's not like there's not a lot of design involved. There's a nice consistent column width, very readable text, but it's not like design heavy. It's one of my favorite examples of like kind of a purely developer blog slash portfolio site. And I think like clean and readable is
mm.
achievable for almost anybody. And then you get into novelty on top of that. And novelty is fantastic, but not as critical as clean and readable and presenting the work that you've done.
Yeah, that's like, if we're talking about the garden metaphor, that's like putting the gnomes out there or whatever it is, just to add a little bit of flair to what you've already got. Like that extra stuff isn't what's critical to having a garden. You need to have something growing. But once you get something growing, now you've got time to add that extra little bit of flair, like put sound effects in or whatever it is that you wanted to do, to make it uniquely yours. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And one other thing that you mentioned, you started talking about examples, Max's site. I think that could also be helpful when you're trying to assess your own portfolio. And you mentioned earlier about like taking screenshots of 5 of your favorites. Just kind of measure your portfolio up to some of your other favorites, or look at some other favorite portfolios and see what is common among them, and like, oh, okay, that's why I like this, and try to bring that to your own, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's it's not like you're going to go plagiarize somebody's space. I don't think you need to do that to like look and be inspired by. And there's like there's a big divide between plagiarizing, like cut and paste, or just like totally biting somebody's work and taking elements that you really liked and incorporating them into your own work. And there's like and that's a balance. And I don't think people should go out and copy it. But like if you're stuck on the design aspect of what it is you're trying to present, there's plenty to go out there and draw from and get inspired by, to create your own space. I totally 100% agree. Keep it simple to start. Work within your capacity, and then add and iterate on that. And preferably whatever the space is, whatever like whatever the expanse of your online garden uh, is, like it should be something that you want to work on too. Like if you don't want to work on it, if it's a chore, then that's another barrier that I see pretty frequently, right? Like you'll make something and it's just not, you don't enjoy working on it, and then like how are you ever going to like motivate yourself to get in there and spend the time you need to do to improve it or add to it, or keep like keep it fresh over time if it's not a space that you like. I also Josh Como. Is that? I'm probably butchering his last name. Apologies,
Yeah, yeah.
Josh.
Hmm.
He has a really great book about uh, your first portfolio, right? Like it's really targeted at junior developers or newer career developers that don't have a portfolio at all. And he has just an absolute wonderful book about creating a strong developer portfolio, and it's very focused on kind of the design and initial content aspects of it. But it's a wonderful resource, and you could go in there and work through what he says in that book, and really come out the other side with a nice space that you can build on.
Mm. Yeah, Josh is definitely an inspiration for me in my portfolio. Like, Josh's thing is out of this world. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
everything
think
everything
that's
he does is
all
high
really
quality,
awesome advice.
for absolutely sure. Like
Yeah,
Josh just brings the heat on everything he touches.
yeah, yeah. It's really impressive stuff. Well, cool. So, Joel, we're toward the end of our time. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
So we're actually on Egghead. We're if you go to egghead.io / portfolios, we're curating a list of portfolios that we really love, and when you land on there, you'll see that a lot of these are very design forward. It's just kind of the nature of collecting portfolios. But then some of them are on the kind of plainer, more developer focused, and there's a lot of great ideas on here. And we're going to build this over time. So if you're interested in that, go check it out, and you can kind of see what other folks are doing.
Yeah, I think that's great. Getting inspiration from each other as that's how the world goes round, I guess. so, so as we wrap up, we do have a homework assignment for you all, folks. So the homework assignment for you is to set aside 20 to 30 minutes to assess your own portfolio. So think about like, what does this communicate about me? And does that match what I want it to communicate about me? Is there anything missing that I want to make sure that I call out for potential employers or partners or whatever? Is there anything you have to add to that, Joel?
Yeah, and if you have something and you want me to check it out, at jhooks on Twitter, and you can send it to me, and I'm always happy to look at them. I like to, and maybe offer an opinion too. We'll see.
That's awesome. That's really nice of you to offer. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. This has been great. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate your time. And yeah, you already mentioned your Twitter, so reach out to Joel there, follow him. And with that, we'll just say goodbye. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.